And we are back. Thank you so much for joining us today, by the way. And wasn't Jean-Eflain Bavouzet, he was incredible to talk to, certainly incredible to listen to, but incredible to talk to. So Lena Leson is back with us, and we're going to talk about the works that we're going to be hearing. A reminder to you that the French Festival here with the DSO is just getting underway today. So there are 3 more weeks of performances, which is very exciting. But Lena's going to help us get ready for what we're going to hear after the intermission here. So we just heard Jean-Eflain Bavouzet talking about the left-handed concerto.
Absolutely.
And you and I talked about the concerto in G major before. So I wanted you to compare the two a little bit because they're both on the program today.
Absolutely. Although Ravel wrote them at the same time as we discussed, they're really quite different works. Of course, the concerto for the left hand is for the left hand alone. It was commissioned by the Austrian pianist Paul Wittgenstein. And when Ravel first agreed to take on this commission, he was very concerned about whether or not the textures would work. He was anxious to make sure that the work wouldn't sound thin, because of course the pianist is playing with only one hand. And one of the things I think you'll notice this morning is that the texture is actually much thicker in this left-hand concerto than in the previous concerto, which is sort of an interesting facet, a feature of this work. And of course it stands to reason that Paul Wittgenstein, who was dubbed the string breaker by his childhood piano teacher, would be able to give it that kind of force. As our soloist discussed, this is an immensely difficult work for the left hand. And in fact, when Ravel first showed it to Paul, he was not able to play it with the left hand alone. He actually played it with 2 hands, yes.
Wow.
So even Ravel couldn't quite tackle that. But in terms of its structure, the piano concerto for the left hand is 1 movement alone. And you'll hear there's a sort of Ravel actually writes in one of the autograph manuscript mixed muses as a description of the way in which the work blends these 2 ideas, which you'll hear at the very beginning of the orchestral introduction. The first theme is going to be a sort of lyrical, expansive, dotted theme.
Right.
And the second one is going to be based in jazz. And those 2 themes will compete and sometimes come together throughout the course of the concerto in, I think, a really exciting way.
All right, I'm talking with Lena Leson. She is getting us ready for the works that we're going to hear. Let's talk about something else. So one of his largest works, if not his largest work, Daphnis and Chloe, a ballet.
Yes.
And you are very well versed in dance and in music, so you're the perfect person to have here. So tell us a little bit about this piece, what his thinking was, especially as he went in to write such a significant work in his repertoire.
Absolutely. This is one of my favorite works by Ravel. And it's important to me, I think, when we're listening to these beautiful compositions in the concert hall to understand how they came to be, to understand their balletic history. So this work was actually commissioned by Sergei Diaghilev, who is the impresario of the Ballet Russe, the most important early 20th century ballet company for sure, because of the way in which this company brought together innovative composers, choreographers, dancers, and designers. And Daphnis was actually the first work commissioned by a French composer, which gives you an indication of Ravel's status in Parisian musical circles at the time. And although it's one of his most beautiful, one of his longest works, the production was actually kind of a nightmare. Getting it to the stage was so difficult, so emotionally draining, that Michael Fokine, who was the choreographer and the ballet master of the Ballet Russe at the time, actually quit the company after. The work is designed after the Greek classic poet Longus. It tells the story of Daphnis and Chloe, who is captured by pirates and then rescued by Pan.
This is quite an undertaking. And so there's going to be certain things that are left out, certain things that are going to be left in as we hear it performed today. So can you tell us a little bit about what he had to take out?
Absolutely. We're hearing the second suite today, which is essentially the apotheosis of the ballet, the conclusion. So it deals with sunrise, which is one of Ravel's most beautiful sections of the ballet. You'll hear in the piccolos and the violins bird calls as the 2 motifs of Daphnis and Chloe meld together in the orchestra. And then the sun rises pictorially through the strings and then the full orchestra. The second section will be dominated by the flute, and in fact in the ballet it's a pantomime. And then in the third section, which Ravel spent over a year trying to perfect and refine, what you'll hear is actually the bacchanal, or the danse générale, with which the ballet ends. It's going to be a beautiful performance, I'm sure.
Lena, thank you so much for preparing us for this wonderful program today. We hope that you enjoyed the second half of the concert. We'll be back in 2 days with more French music by Camille Saint-Saëns. Live from Orchestra Hall is presented by the Ford Motor Company Fund, made possible by generous support from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation. Thank you again for joining us. I'm your host, Delisi.